did this issue of canceling the mandatory long-form census become so controversial?
There's a perception, I think, particularly among the Ottawa press gallery, that there's a bit of a hidden or secret agenda. And they're always waiting for Stephen Harper to basically show himself to be a real conservative. And this sort of smacks of real conservatism, so it tends to get people's attention and tends to get them a little bit more outraged. And it really is more reflective of that than it is of, I think, really anything that has to do with the actual census itself. So instead of saying we're just going to change this next year, giving it a reasonable period of time to actually go through some transition, maybe a couple of iterations of different types of surveys so they can really figure out what the impact is going to be. The government hasn't done any of that. It just announced that it was going to make the change. On the other side of this, the hysteria has been unbelievable. I mean, people who know better than what they're saying are saying some fairly ridiculous things about what the change actually means for the quality of the data that's being generated by the census.
Okay, Darrell, give us some context for this. How reliable was the data that was gathered from the mandatory long-form census, and how reliable is the data going to be from the new voluntary survey?
Well, all of it comes down to the question of how truthful are people being in their responses. So the first thing is, we know that in the last long-form census, 21,000 people reported their religion as Jedi. Do we have 21,000 Jedis in this country? I don't know. But people are misreporting data all the time, sometimes maliciously, sometimes because they have a political agenda.
What is the broader value of personal information beyond the economics of it? Could you speak to that?
Anybody who's involved in marketing, the more that they know about you, the more that they can target their products and services to what you want. And so there's certain aspects of demography, and that's basically what we get out of the census is demographic information that tells you things, for example, like where the best place to build a senior citizens home might be, or where the best place to locate a school might be, or like I said before, where to best market skateboards, or if you're going to open up, I don't know, a drive-through restaurant, where the best place might be for that. I mean, it has valuable information because what it does is it reduces the number of wrong decisions that you make regarding the population that you're trying to service.
Clearly the religious community in Canada is trying to service a certain population, people with great social needs, if you will. How would you address their concerns that a voluntary survey may not, or that it will further marginalize the underprivileged in our society?
Well, sending them to jail and fining them because they don't respond to the survey isn't exactly serving them well either. So I find it actually somewhat hilarious that people say that that we need the law to force the people who are the most oppressed in our society to give up the little information that they have in order for us to generate statistics to serve them. It seems like a rather absurd type of argument. There's a lot of bogus information going on around about the census. There isn't an intelligent conversation happening over it right now. People are getting fairly hysterical, and including some of the churches that you mentioned before. And really what they should be doing is having an honest participation in this debate.
So do you think that the concerns then that have been voiced by the churches are valid, or do you think that they're exaggerated?
No, I think that the concerns are legitimate, but not very well thought through. I mean, there are solutions to all the problems that they raise, and the solution isn't necessarily having a mandatory long-form census.
What is the solution?
Well, the solutions are having a very good voluntary long-form census that's really well communicated to the public, in which they feel a real patriotic desire to participate in the filling out of the census, and that would be better than anything that we could require them to fill out. It was interesting. I was actually quite shocked when we asked people on the survey, how likely would you be to fill out the long-form census? Well, that's 80% said that they would. So that's 80% that we don't even have to deal with. There's 20% of the population that we really need to talk to and communicate with about filling out the long-form census and telling them that it's really valuable to do. And if we can convince them that it's really valuable to do, they're less likely to lie about it, they're less likely to not answer certain questions, they're more likely to participate. And I really think that's the challenge going forward, rather than putting in some form of draconian law forcing people to respond.